Hello, and welcome to Akron, VA. I hope that you will enjoy this story, and if you do, please leave a like and a comment. I would really appreciate it. To stay up to date on when new stories are released, please feel free to subscribe and click the notification bell. Without further ado, I implore that you listen and enjoy. He descended from the sky, coming from another place. He wore brilliant armor, made of sacred light, and carried a fragment of God upon his arm. He told us of the home of our past, the home of our present, and the home of our future. He spoke with the wisdom of generations and the authority of God. Praise to the first and most holy of the prophets to come. Praise to the first of many. Excerpt from The Prophet of Man, author unknown. The air felt cold and stagnant, which was also exactly how John felt as he slowly lifted himself to a sitting position on his cryogenic hibernation bed. He had no idea how long he had been under for. Actually, he had no idea about a lot of stuff right now. Long-term cryogenic hibernation was hell on the mind. It sometimes took days, if not weeks, for someone's memories to fully recover after a long stint on ice. He didn't have that kind of time. He peeled open his eyes and looked around the single dark room that was barely illuminated by the faint glow of various instruments on a console nearby. He was on a ship. That much he remembered. He remembered his name, too. John. John what? He didn't remember his last name, but he was sure it would come back to him. He was a spacer of some kind. A pilot? An explorer, maybe? He glanced over at the blinking console. The lights on it were not bright, but it still took him several moments to adjust to the change. The letters DSE were written in bold red letters on the bulkhead behind the console. DSE? He squinted harder, trying to make out the smaller letters beneath. Deep Space Explorer. That's right. This brain fog was killing him.
"You're finally awake,"
a low, mechanical voice said from the console. John started at the voice and drove his head directly into the cryobed's covering.
"Watch your head."
With great effort and a moderate amount of pain, John pried his mouth open and tried to speak. However, nothing came out.
"It will take several minutes for your vocal cords and throat to fully recover from stasis. Please refrain from attempting to speak. I'm sure your fragile human mind has questions. Luckily for you, I have been programmed to answer said questions."
John looked around the console, trying to see where the voice was coming from. He noticed a single blue light that was blinking along with the voice's speech patterns.
Something is wrong. Recalibrating.
John lifted each leg with great strain and swung them over the side of the bed to rest on the floor.
"It seems your rebriefing file is corrupted. That is problematic."
He pushed against the bed with his arms, straining considerably as he tried to force himself to stand. Instead, he collapsed onto the cold metal floor.
"I could have told you that would happen. Not that you would have listened to me."
John crawled towards the console, grasping at seams in the floor to pull him onward.
"It would be better for you to rest until your body fully recovers from cryosickness."
John finally reached the console and hoisted himself up onto its edge, his legs clearly still not working properly.
"Good job. What is your plan now?" Maybe your brain is more damaged than I thought. Unfortunately, humans are not easily recalibrated.
What? Water?
Oh, right. Dehydration is a side effect of cryostasis.
A small circular hatch opened on the console, and a clear tube emerged from it. John put the tube in his mouth and began to drink the refreshing water that it stored.
Feeling better?
The voice asked. Yeah. What's going on?
It seems that we have reached our destination, and the ship's computer has heated the vessel and pulled you out of hibernation.
John painfully cleared his throat. I thought you were the ship's computer.
Right. I guess I pulled you out of hibernation then.
The fog in John's brain began to slowly subside so that he could think and even see more clearly. Can you turn on some lights or something?
Setting cabin lights to 100%.
The world turned blinding white, and John collapsed back onto the floor in a daze as light emanated from all around him. Turn it down! He shouted, his head pounding with an instant and excruciating headache.
Setting cabin lights to 25%.
The lights faded, and John was able to see again, even though his whole world felt like it was spinning uncontrollably. In an instant, he was back in flight school, trying his best to pilot his Pinnacle-class Corvette out of a gravity well. He had entered a death spiral because of the black hole nearby, and was fighting to regain control. Pull yourself together, John, his instructor yelled. I'm trying! All the screens and indicator lights in front of him turned red as his ship was torn into a million pieces. Trying isn't good enough. Not by a long shot. Run the sim again. Each simulation lasted 2 hours, and all it took was one small mistake or unknown variable to mess it all up. Every run was procedurally generated, so those variables were everywhere. This was the 5th one he had run, and failed today. At this rate, he would never be selected as a pilot. But then, he was. And now he was laying on the cold metal floor of his very own Pinnacle.
Are you all right?
The disembodied voice asked from the console. I think so. He rolled over onto all fours and tried to take in his surroundings. The ship was smaller than he remembered, though he didn't remember much. The cabin was a thin, house-shaped pentagon, only 2 meters across at its widest point, with 3 cutouts in each wall for various stations and consoles. His hibernation bed was near the back, and the life support console sat recessed into the wall beside it. The interior walls were white with black seam lines running throughout and connecting to the gray metal floor below. In the front corner, about 5 meters from him, was the helm. The captain's chair, his chair, was spun around and facing him. Pinnacle-class Corvettes were originally meant to be crewed by 3 people, but IM's AI co-pilots all but replaced the need for additional crew members. It was odd how much he remembered about the specifics of his ship, but not about his own life or mission. He crawled towards the helm, his legs slowly regaining their strength. The advanced technology of the cryobed all but eliminated muscle atrophy during long voyages, but there were still other issues and side effects that it caused. He pulled himself up into the command throne and stared at the controls in front of him. Some memories returned, and he naturally knew what certain dials, sliders, and buttons did, but the function of others still eluded him. How do I open the blinders?
To your right, there is a large bright red handle that says blinder release. I'm not positive, but maybe you should try that one.
I don't remember you being so sarcastic.
You don't remember a lot of things, Captain.
He reached for the handle and pushed it forward. The metal blinders that shrouded the helm began to pull upwards and disappear, revealing the universe beyond. What John saw took his breath away. Light flooded into the cabin from the 2 nearby stars. They perfectly illuminated the planet in front of him that his ship was now orbiting. Brilliant oranges, greens, and blues seemed to radiate off the planet's surface. He saw vast mesas with sporadic forests and oceans. It was beautiful. Small details of his mission returned to him. He, along with 132 other explorers, were sent to investigate other planets that could potentially support human life. Each of the celestial bodies were light years away, and even though the pinnacles were capable of traveling a large fraction of the speed of light, it would still take decades, if not centuries, for them to reach their destination. He couldn't remember the exact distance of his destination, but there was a very real and sobering possibility that everyone he had ever known was already dead. He knew that possibility when he signed up for this mission, but the thought still caused his stomach to turn. That feeling of melancholy was easily overpowered by the sense of wonder he felt at being one of the first human beings to look out at another Earth-like planet. He would go down in history as one of the greatest explorers of all time. His ship was in a powered counter-orbit, with the ship itself rotated 90 degrees to orient itself with the planet's equator. This allowed for continuous thrust to create artificial gravity on board the ship and allow for faster aerial reconnaissance of the surface. John pressed a few buttons on the console from muscle memory, which opened up a data readout on a display to his left. They had completed 2 full orbits around the planet and had run a full preliminary scan of the surface. The report confirmed a functional O3 atmosphere and breathable oxygen on the surface, though it also had high concentrations of iron and aluminum oxide both in the soil and air, so the air's purity could cause health problems after prolonged exposure. He would make sure to wear a fully stocked spacesuit just in case. The lush greenery speckled on the planet below also proved the existence of life outside of Earth, which alone was a monumental discovery. The data readout showed that the life seemed to be carbon-based, which he had expected on such a similar cousin of Earth. The planet itself was substantially smaller than Earth, and the gravity was slightly weaker, but not by much. The core must be extraordinarily dense. John's mind was flooded with thoughts, ideas, and possibilities of this new world he had discovered.
Shall we prepare for atmospheric entry, Captain?
Yes, I think we shall.
Running system diagnostics, thrust, operational, navigation, operational, canopy, operational, life support, operational, landing gear, operational, thermal control, operational, quantum field tether. Irrelevant to planetary entry, all necessary systems armed and operational. Waiting for admin confirmation.
Is that me?
Yes, John, you are the admin.
Right. Let's do this.
You may want to reseal the blinders first.
Right. He reached for the handle and pulled it back to the downwards position, watching the view of the beautiful planet become obstructed by the blast shields.
You should probably strap in. Also, you have to manually initiate the entry sequence. Then I will take over from there. Thankfully.
Okay, how do I do that again?
Strap in or initiate entry.
Initiate entry, John said as he strapped himself to the captain's chair.
Giant red re-entry button.
Got it. He lifted the clear covering over the large button and took a deep breath before pressing down on it.
Planetary entry initiated. Lowering orbit in 3, 2, 1.
John felt his weight shift backwards as his ship pushed towards the planet's surface. Their entry would be somewhat gradual. They would begin slowing their orbit while constantly lowering themselves as close as they could before stabilizing and matching the planet's own orbit. The whole process could take an hour, depending on various external factors, but Pinnacle AI were state-of-the-art and could handle calculations like this in their sleep. if they did sleep. What is your name, by the way?
My designation is Pinnacle 10, though I believe you had taken to calling me Pineapple because you thought, and I quote,
A robot named Pineapple would be hilarious.
though I believe the real reason was because you were intoxicated at the time and misread the word Pinnacle, despite it being the name of the ship that you have been training on for over a decade.
Oh, right. Sorry about that. Can I just call you Pine?
You can call me whatever you want, John. I'm just a machine, after all, right?
The ship began to shake violently as John's head was thrust forcefully back into his headrest. What's happening? He asked in shock and confusion.
Just some light turbulence. Nothing to worry about. Probably.
Probably?
Probably.
John clenched his teeth and grasped the armrests on his chair firmly until his knuckles turned white. Then, the lights on the cabin flickered and went black.
Or maybe not.